Yo, what is up, guys? It's Pedro here. So, yesterday was devastating for the Washington Commanders in so many different ways, but today they get some good news about the franchise quarterback, Jayden Daniels, and the injury is not as bad as it looked, at least so far. That's what we're hearing. So if you guys are new, make sure to subscribe, hit that like button and that notification bell as well. Do all that good stuff. It really does help out the channel. We're going to be going over some of the reporters, what they're saying about the injury, and then some, a team doctor from that was, had like 17 years of experience, what he thinks. He feels pretty, optimistic about, the injury. So I think, the Commanders are in a good spot here compared to maybe what we thought they would be in, last night. It's still, I believe, will be season ending, even though the reporters and stuff are saying that, it might not be season ending. I think the Commanders are just going to shut him down for the rest of the year, as they should, and they should not have had him out there today. And, it's another day with Joe Witt still as the defensive coordinator. We're also going to get into a bunch of different injuries. Lattimore out for the year. Luke McCaffrey likely out for the year. But let's talk about this. So Jayden Daniels, this is what Ian Rappaport had to say. Suffered a dislocated elbow. Will have an MRI to determine how long he's out. Sources say to see, if he, tore anything, stuff like that. The belief is it's not as bad as it could have been, but Daniels will miss several games, and we knew that. And I think regardless of if he could come back, that's two different, that's two different things. If he could or should come back. I think the way it's looking like he could come back like week 15, week 16, maybe, 17 or whatever. But he should not come back. There's no reason for him to come back. If this was let's say the Commanders were, what are they right now? 3-6. So let's say they were 6-3. I think it would be a different discussion. But they're 3-6. The team sucks right now. The roster is, not as good as we thought it was, and they're also, riddled with injuries. The Commanders have had Commanders, Redskins, and Washington football team. They've had some bad luck injury, had some bad injury years like 2018, but this is up there with the worst I've seen. We go through the list, it's really, really bad. We'll go through it quick, but offensive line's been the only one that's been healthy, but he still had Cosme out for a while. Terry McLaurin, Deebo Samuel out for a little bit. Noah Brown out for the whole season, basically. Luke McCaffrey, now he's gone. And then, Austin Eckler out. Defensively, Dorrance Armstrong, Javonte Jean-Baptiste out. Dietrich Wise, Will Harris, Marshawn Lattimore, Jonathan Jones for a while. So many different injuries. It's actually crazy. And I know I'm missing some too. But let's talk about this Jayden stuff even more. So the x-rays on the left throwing elbow were negative. So that is really good news and means he didn't break it. It's a dislocation, which obviously is not good, but it's better than what it could have been, a break and other stuff. So, and it's also his non-throwing, elbow. So that is also really good. Obviously he still uses it, but it's not as important as maybe it would be if it was his right, elbow and throwing arm hand. So, that is good news for the Commanders right there, and especially Jayden Daniels. But I'm going to talk about later too why I think this is, obviously it sucks for the Commanders and for Jayden Daniels, and you don't want anyone to go through an injury, but I think it could end up being a blessing in disguise for the Washington Commanders, just because, it kind of forces them to sit Jayden for the rest of the year. Because I do believe, even with how bad the team is, I think with some of these games, I think Jayden maybe could have, worked some magic and won, 2 or 3 of these games, and, especially if they got some guys back and gotten to maybe 6, no pun intended, 7 wins, and, gotten, instead of a top 6 pick, maybe like the 10th, 11th, 12th, or, further down pick. But now Jayden is forced to sit out, very likely for the rest of the year, and, he'll be fully healthy for the start of the next season, for the start of, hopefully all of this stuff in April, May, he'll be fully good to go. Versus, hey, who knows? Maybe they keep playing him and, other things happen. Obviously, it's all hypotheticals, but, something worse could happen. And then also this kind of forces them to just, be huge sellers at the deadline. Not that they wouldn't be anyways, but I think this kind of changes. I hope seeing that absolutely pathetic performance by the defense and the offense yesterday just shows Adam Peters that this roster is not good enough, and they need to get as many draft picks as possible. They don't have guys on this roster that are going to fetch first, second, third round picks that they would realistically trade, but they can definitely get some, draft capital from some guys like Deebo Samuel on the offensive end. And then, Lattimore would have been a trade candidate, but he tore his ACL, so that's not an option anymore. You got some guys on the defense. Like, if you can get anything, I'm saying even a pick swap, there's no reason to have these guys that are going to be free agents on the team. Zach Ertz, Bobby Wagner, Von Miller. I don't think you get anything for him, but I'm saying any of these guys, if you can get anything for them, go ahead, make the move. I heard there's some interest in Andrew Wiley. If you can get something for Andrew Wiley, man, please go ahead and do it. I saw some Laramie Tunsil and Deron Payne stuff. I'm not so big on that. Laramie Tunsil, he's been good for the Commanders, and, he's older, so if you can get good value for him, then maybe go ahead and do it if you like Coleman. Because I personally do like Coleman. I think Coleman can be a left tackle in this league, which is why I really didn't want the Commanders to draft a tackle. And they could have had Tunsil at left and Coleman at right. That's a discussion for another day, but I think that was a mistake that Adam Peters made. I'm never going to be mad about protecting your franchise quarterback and getting someone like Connerly, but I didn't agree with the decision. I think they should have went defense there and helped out the defensive line, but it is what it is. They didn't make that decision, but I would definitely trade some of these guys. And if they need to, if they get really good value on Laramie, go ahead. But I just think that your franchise quarterback got hurt 3 times this year in 3 straight games that he played. You want to protect him as much as possible. I don't know if trading Laramie Tunsil. Yes, he's older and he might not be a part of be a part of this team in 5 years, but I think you still should keep him and maybe move on from some of the other guys and get as much value as you can for those guys. Real quick though, a word from today's sponsor before we get into the other injuries. And a huge shout out to Sleeper. Make sure you guys check them out. There's a bunch of different sports you can make picks on, and also you can play fantasy sports there, get your sports news on there. So the Commander season has been a disaster, but still got a lot of sporting events going on. Monday Night Football, Dallas Cowboys versus the Arizona Cardinals. So that's a game where you can win real money making picks. So make sure you guys check them out. Use promo code Pedro on Sleeper and get a 100% match up to $100. Link in the description. Terms and conditions apply. All right, again, huge shout out to Sleeper for sponsoring today's video. So let's talk about the doctor's opinion. I don't know why I didn't talk about that earlier, but just so many different things to talk about. But he said, this is David Chow, who was head team doc for 17 plus years for the Chargers. I think Chargers. I don't know anything else, or any other team. But he said, indeed, X-rays negative. MRI will show ligament damage. Not expecting surgery. Return this season possible, as discussed last night. So that is good, and I think you definitely want him to sit out the rest of the year, even if he's good to go. Why are you going to throw him back into this fire with JV receivers, an offensive line that the beginning of the season was good, and yesterday I just don't know what happened, man. They were absolutely awful. I know the Seahawks are good; they're legit, and I don't even know if I mentioned yesterday the Seahawks in my post-game video. It wasn't even a post-game video. It was just talking about Jayden Daniels. But the Seahawks are a good team, but the offensive line's performance yesterday was inexcusable, and it's part of the reason that Jayden got hurt and could have gotten hurt on so many different other plays. This is kind of what the head doctor had to say. Let's go into another tweet here. Nicky Javala will go through some of the other injuries and just we'll call it a day after that. But you got Marshawn Lattimore. We'll start with Luke McCaffrey. He broke his collarbone. Talked about that in yesterday's video, which kind of said it would happen, and that was something that David Chow, the doctor that I was talking about, mentioned right after the injury happened. So shout out to him. But McCaffrey, that's a big blow. I mean, he's been elite as a kick returner. Really, really good as a kick returner. And as a receiver, he hasn't been amazing, but he's been an option. And now you're down. You have Deebo. That's it. Everyone else has gone. Like Jalen Lane has not been good. I'm sorry. I'm a big Jalen Lane fan, especially out of Virginia Tech. Coming out of Virginia Tech, but it hasn't been good this season from him. And that doesn't mean it can't be in the future. But he's been struggling, man. He had the fumble yesterday. The week before had the struggle on the kick return, and then also dropped the pass. So it's been bad, man. It's been really bad recently from Jalen Lane. But again, hope he can turn it around. Let's see, Lattimore. I don't know where it is right here, but Lattimore tore his ACL, so he is out for the rest of the season. And I think his time in Washington is definitely done. His career might be over. So Lattimore, it is what it is. It didn't work out here. I thought at the time it was a good move by the Commanders and Adam Peters. It clearly turned out to not be a good move, and he just didn't. He's not the same player. Struggled with injuries last year. This year, the injuries aren't an excuse. He just was bad. He sucks. And he's older. This ACL is going to set him back. He'll probably try to make a comeback, but I don't know if it's really going to work and if he's going to want to be a backup on a team. That's probably what it's going to have to be. So, that's kind of the situation there with the Commanders. And it is what it is, man. This season sucks. This season really sucks. Last year was great. And, I will always, always be grateful for that season, but I also don't think it's as bad as people are saying. Like I said, you get a top 5 draft pick this year. I guess I said like I said, but I didn't even talk about this portion of it. You can trade back from top 5 and maybe get to 12 and still get a really good player, or maybe 10, and you get a bunch of assets and kind of recoup what you lost in some of these trades with Laremy Tunsil, Debo, and then also with Marshawn Lattimore over the last year-ish. So that would be a good move by the Commanders, in my opinion, is trading back and helping out Jayden Daniels and just bringing in a lot more younger talent, because that is what this team needs. And it sucks because not only do they not have young not only is a lot of their team old, but the young talent they have isn't good. That would be one thing if, yes, they only had a few young guys, but those guys were good. But no, the last 2 draft classes, it hasn't been good, man. So Adam Peters, got to have a conversation about him, but it starts with Dan Quinn. We'll talk about Adam Peters a little bit later, but Dan Quinn's definitely got some questions to answer. And I guess he did yesterday, but it is what it is. But thanks for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed. Peace.